The day Unity died, Captain Elena Voss stood at the bridge of the TSS Defiance, watching the emergency transmission from Earth with growing dread. The holographic display showed the Terran Union's High Council chamber, but instead of orderly debate, chaos ruled. Representatives shouted accusations across the marble floor while security forces struggled to maintain order. The Mars colony declares independence from this failed union. Senator Reeves slammed his fist on the podium. We refuse to be dragged down by Earth's corruption. Independence? Chancellor Morrison's voice cracked with fury. You mean rebellion? The Outer Rim territories will never recognize Martian authority. Elena had seen conflicts before, but nothing like this. 300 years of human unity were crumbling in real time. The Terran Union, which had guided humanity's expansion across 47 star systems, was tearing itself apart from within. Her communications officer, Lieutenant Chen, looked up from his console with worried eyes. Captain, we're receiving similar declarations from the Jupiter Mining Consortium, the Centauri Federation, and the Colonial Defense League. They're all claiming sovereignty. The irony was bitter. Humanity had spent decades preparing for external threats, building massive defense fleets and establishing early warning systems throughout their territory. They had never imagined the greatest threat would come from their own fractured politics and competing interests. Elena had grown up hearing stories of humanity's golden age of exploration. Her grandfather often spoke of the early colonists who had worked together to terraform hostile worlds and build thriving civilizations in the void. Those pioneers had understood that survival depended on cooperation. Their descendants had apparently forgotten that lesson. Captain, Tactical Officer Rodriguez called out urgently. Long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures at the edge of the system. Configuration unknown, but the scale is enormous. Elena moved to the tactical display, her heart sinking as she studied the readings. Dozens of vessels, each larger than anything in humanity's fleet, were moving toward the inner system with purpose and coordination. These weren't human ships. How long before they reach Earth? She asked. At current velocity, 18 hours, Rodriguez replied. But, Captain, there's something else. Similar fleets are appearing at Mars, Titan, and 3 other major colonies simultaneously. The realization hit Elena like a physical blow. While humanity had been consumed by internal strife, someone else had been watching and waiting. The timing was too perfect to be coincidence. These aliens had planned their invasion to coincide with humanity's political collapse. Her communications array suddenly crackled with an unfamiliar signal. A translation matrix kicked in, converting the alien sounds into human speech. The voice that emerged was cold and mechanical. Humans of the former Terran Union. I am Warlord Thax of the Korthak Dominion. Your species has shown itself incapable of unity or effective governance. We claim your territories and resources by right of superior organization. Surrender your military vessels and prepare for integration into our empire. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Elena had studied xenobiology reports for years, but the Korthak Dominion was unknown to human intelligence. These aliens had somehow observed humanity without being detected, learning their weaknesses while remaining hidden. Captain, incoming transmission from Luna Colony, Chen announced. It's Director Walsh. Priority 1. Elena accepted the transmission, and Director Walsh's weathered face appeared on screen. Behind him, Elena could see panicked civilians rushing through the colony's corridors. Elena, thank God. We need immediate evacuation. Our long-range arrays detected the alien fleet 20 minutes ago. We have maybe 6 hours before they're in weapons range, and our defensive platforms won't stop anything that size. How many civilians? Elena asked, already calculating the logistics. 38,000, including 1,200 children. The transport ships can handle maybe half that number in one trip. Elena closed her eyes for a moment, weighing impossible choices. Luna Colony was one of humanity's oldest settlements outside Earth, home to critical research facilities and manufacturing centers. Abandoning it would be a devastating blow, but saving those lives was more important than preserving infrastructure. Begin immediate evacuation of all non-essential personnel, she ordered. Priority to children, elderly, and medical cases. We'll make multiple runs if necessary. As the evacuation began, Elena found herself thinking about humanity's greatest strength. Throughout their history, humans had shown an remarkable ability to adapt and survive in the face of overwhelming odds. They had colonized worlds that should have been uninhabitable, survived plagues that should have wiped out their species, and overcome challenges that would have broken other civilizations. But they had also shown a tragic tendency towards self-destruction. Wars, genocides, and conflicts had marked every era of human history. The current crisis was just the latest example of humanity's inability to unite against common threats. The evacuation proceeded smoothly until Rodriguez detected something alarming on his sensors. "Captain, the Korthak fleet has changed course. They're accelerating toward Luna Colony. Estimated arrival in 4 hours." Elena cursed under her breath. The aliens were obviously targeting humanity's evacuation efforts, trying to inflict maximum casualties while human forces were scattered and disorganized. It was a tactically sound strategy that showed sophisticated intelligence gathering. "All ships prepare for defensive positions around Luna Colony," she commanded. "We hold the line until every civilian is evacuated." As her small fleet moved into position, Elena received an encrypted message from Earth Command. The sender was Admiral Harrison, one of the few senior officers who had remained neutral during the political crisis. "Elena, I'm transmitting classified authorization codes. There's something you need to know about humanity's true capabilities. Search your ship's archives for Prometheus Protocol. What you find may be our only hope." The transmission ended before Elena could respond. She had never heard of any Prometheus Protocol, despite her high-level security clearance. Whatever it was, Admiral Harrison believed it was important enough to risk exposure during a critical military situation. Elena made her way to the ship's secure data archive, a heavily shielded compartment deep within the Defiance's hull. The authorization codes Harrison had provided opened files that were buried so deep in the system that she had never known they existed. What she found changed everything she thought she knew about human history. The files contained records dating back over 50,000 years, long before humanity's recorded civilization. According to these documents, humans had once been part of a galactic confederation of warrior species known as the Protectors. They had been responsible for maintaining peace and order across thousands of star systems. But something had gone wrong. A catastrophic war with an enemy called the Devourers had nearly destroyed the galaxy. Humanity had made the ultimate sacrifice, using ancient technology to seal away the threat at the cost of their own advanced civilization. The survivors had chosen to forget their past, living simple lives on Earth while their memories and abilities remained dormant. The Prometheus Protocol was a failsafe, designed to reawaken humanity's true nature if they ever faced extinction. Elena stared at the activation sequence, realizing that she held the power to fundamentally change what it meant to be human. Outside, the first Korthak ships were entering weapons range of Luna Colony. Elena's tactical display showed the stark reality of their situation. 12 human vessels against an armada of advanced alien warships. By any rational calculation, they were doomed. But Elena had learned that humans rarely followed rational calculations when survival was at stake. She thought about the colonists who had carved homes from barren worlds, the explorers who had pushed into the unknown despite impossible odds, and the countless ordinary people who had shown extraordinary courage when everything depended on their actions. Elena placed her hand on the activation console, knowing that once she triggered the Prometheus Protocol, there would be no going back. Humanity would reclaim its ancient heritage, but it would also inherit the responsibilities and burdens that came with that power. The Korthak flagship fired its primary weapons at Luna Colony's defensive platforms. Brilliant energy beams tore through the installations like they were made of paper. Elena watched the destruction and made her choice. She activated the Prometheus Protocol. Across human space, ancient systems that had lain dormant for millennia began to awaken. On Earth, forgotten installations buried beneath the ocean floors started broadcasting signals that reached into the depths of human DNA. On Mars, crystalline structures that had been dismissed as natural formations began to glow with inner light. Throughout the colonies, humans suddenly found themselves experiencing memories that weren't their own, and abilities they had never possessed. Elena felt the change immediately. Knowledge flooded her mind. Tactical information and strategic concepts that no human military academy had ever taught. She understood spacecraft design principles that were beyond current human technology, and she could perceive the flow of battle in ways that seemed almost supernatural. But more importantly, she could sense every human in her fleet. Their minds were connecting through some kind of psychic network that linked all of humanity's awakening consciousness. The political divisions that had seemed so important hours earlier suddenly felt petty and meaningless. The Korthak fleet moved closer, confident in their overwhelming superiority. They had no idea that they were about to face humanity as it truly was, rather than the divided and weakened species they had planned to conquer. Elena smiled grimly as she felt her crew's minds synchronizing with hers. The real war was about to begin. What humanity really is. The moment the Prometheus Protocol fully activated, Elena Voss understood why humanity had chosen to forget. The memories flooding back weren't just tactical knowledge or technological data. They were the accumulated experiences of a species that had fought across the galaxy for thousands of years, bearing witness to civilizations rising and falling, watching planets burn and stars die. But along with the pain came power beyond imagination. Elena's perception expanded far beyond the confines of her ship. She could sense every human in the solar system, their minds linking together in a vast network of shared consciousness. The political leaders who had been screaming at each other hours earlier were now experiencing the same awakening, their petty grievances dissolving as they remembered what they truly were. Captain Rodriguez, her tactical officer, looked up from his console with eyes that held ancient wisdom. "Captain, I can see their entire fleet structure, not just what our sensors detect, but their command hierarchy, their communication patterns, their strategic weaknesses." Lieutenant Chen nodded from his station. "It's like we've fought these Korthak before in another life. I know how they think, how they coordinate their attacks." Elena realized that in a sense, they had fought them before. The genetic memories. Awakening in humanity included encounters with dozens of aggressive species across galactic history. The Korthak Dominion might be new to human space, but their tactics and technology followed patterns that humanity's ancient warriors had seen countless times. Across the fleet, similar awakenings were occurring. Pilots who had struggled with basic maneuvers suddenly found themselves capable of impossible aerial choreography. Engineers who had worked for years to understand human technology now instinctively grasped principles that could revolutionize their entire civilization. Soldiers discovered that their bodies could endure stresses that should have been fatal and react with speed that defied normal human limitations. The Korthak fleet commander, Warlord Thax, watched the human vessels with growing puzzlement. Instead of fleeing or mounting a desperate last stand, the enemy ships were repositioning themselves in formations that made no tactical sense according to Korthak military doctrine. Elena could sense Thax's confusion through the enhanced awareness the protocol had granted her. The Korthak were a proud warrior species, but their strength came from overwhelming force and rigid hierarchical command structures. They had conquered dozens of civilizations by using superior numbers and technology to crush resistance before it could organize effectively. They had never faced an enemy that could match their coordination while exceeding their adaptability. Elena opened communications to all human vessels, knowing that her words would reach not just her immediate fleet, but every awakened human throughout the colonies. "This is Captain Elena Voss to all units. Our enemy believes they face a divided and weakened species. They don't understand that division was our choice, not our weakness. When humans unite with true purpose, we become something greater than the sum of our parts." The response came not in words, but in shared determination that flowed through the psychic network. Elena felt the consciousness of every human pilot, every gunner, every engineer working in perfect harmony toward a single goal. It was like conducting an orchestra where every musician could hear the thoughts of their colleagues and anticipate every note of the symphony. The first engagement began when Korthak fighters moved to attack the evacuation transports fleeing Luna Colony. Elena's pilots intercepted them with maneuvers that seemed to violate the basic laws of physics. Human fighters that should have been outclassed in every way suddenly danced through Korthak formations like they were standing still. Pilot Sarah Martinez, flying an outdated interceptor, found herself weaving between energy blasts that her conscious mind couldn't even track, but her awakened instincts guided her ship through impossible spirals and turns, placing her in perfect position to target vulnerable points in Korthak armor that standard scanning had never detected. The Korthak pilots, trained from birth for combat, discovered that their reflexes were no match for humans who could literally think faster than the speed of individual thought. Every human pilot was connected to the tactical awareness of the entire fleet, allowing them to coordinate attacks and defensive maneuvers with precision that no communication system could match. Warlord Thax watched in growing alarm as his fighter squadrons were systematically dismantled by inferior human technology. "Impossible," he growled to his tactical officer. "These humans fight like they share a single mind." His observation was more accurate than he realized. Elena and her fellow humans were indeed sharing something approaching a collective consciousness. But unlike the rigid hive minds that the Korthak had encountered before, human unity preserved individual creativity and innovation. Each pilot fought with their own unique style while contributing to the greater tactical picture. As the smaller engagement unfolded, Elena began implementing strategies that drew on 50,000 years of military experience. She divided her fleet into seemingly random groups that confused Korthak sensors, then had them converge on strategic targets with timing that created maximum psychological impact. The key wasn't just defeating the Korthak fleet. Elena understood that news of this battle would spread throughout the galaxy, and humanity needed to send a clear message about what they had become. Other aggressive species were undoubtedly watching to see if humans would be easy prey or dangerous opponents. Elena's enhanced awareness allowed her to perceive the broader strategic situation with startling clarity. The Korthak Dominion wasn't acting alone. They were part of a loose alliance of predatory species that had been gradually expanding into human space, testing defenses and gathering intelligence. This invasion was meant to be the opening move in a larger campaign of conquest. But the awakening of humanity's true nature would change everything. Elena ordered her ships to demonstrate capabilities that human technology shouldn't have possessed. Vessels that had been built for exploration and defense suddenly revealed hidden weapon systems and defensive capabilities that defied Korthak understanding. The Defiance itself began reconfiguring its hull structure, armor plates shifting into new patterns that created deflection fields around critical systems. The secret was that human technology had always contained these capabilities, built by their ancient civilization, and hidden until the Prometheus Protocol activated them. Every human ship, every space station, every colony had been constructed, with dormant systems that could be awakened when humanity's true nature returned. As the battle intensified, Elena began broadcasting on frequencies that would reach every human settlement throughout the galaxy. Her message was simple but profound. We remember who we are. We remember what we're capable of. And we remember our duty to protect those who cannot protect themselves. The response was immediate and overwhelming. From the mining colonies of the asteroid belt to the research stations orbiting distant pulsars, humans began reporting strange phenomena. Ancient installations were coming online, revealing technologies that made current human science look primitive. More importantly, humans everywhere were experiencing the same awakening that Elena's crew had undergone. The political crisis that had nearly destroyed the Terran Union became irrelevant as humanity rediscovered its true unity. The squabbling factions found themselves connected by bonds that transcended political ideology or territorial disputes. They were all part of something larger and more important than any individual government or corporation. Elena could sense the shift in galactic politics as news of the battle spread. Species that had considered humanity weak and divided were rapidly reassessing their positions. The Korthak invasion had been intended to demonstrate human vulnerability, but instead it was revealing human strength that had been hidden for millennia. Warlord Thax made his final mistake when he decided to target Luna Colony directly, hoping to force human surrender through massive civilian casualties. His dreadnought's main weapons charged for a bombardment that would have killed thousands of evacuating civilians. Elena's response came not from her ship's weapons, but from her awakened consciousness. Every human in the fleet focused their mental energy through the psychic network, creating a phenomenon that Korthak science couldn't explain. The dreadnought's weapon systems simply stopped functioning, as if the laws of physics had temporarily suspended themselves around the massive vessel. In the stunned silence that followed, Elena opened a communication channel to the Korthak flagship. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of humanity's ancient role as galactic protectors. Warlord Thax, you made two critical errors. First, you assumed that humanity's apparent weakness was real rather than chosen. Second, you threatened innocent civilians under our protection. Both mistakes end now. What happened next would be remembered throughout the galaxy as the moment humanity reclaimed its place among the stars. The human fleet, vastly outnumbered and outgunned by conventional measures, proceeded to methodically disable every Korthak vessel without causing unnecessary casualties. It was a demonstration of restraint and capability that sent shockwaves through every military force in known space. Elena allowed the surviving Korthak ships to retreat, but not before delivering a final message that would reach the ears of every potential aggressor. Humanity has awakened. We offer peace to those who seek it, protection to those who need it, and consequences to those who threaten the innocent. Choose wisely. As the last Korthak vessel disappeared into hyperspace, Elena reflected on what humanity had become. They were no longer the divided and squabbling species that had nearly destroyed itself through political infighting. They had rediscovered their true nature as protectors and guardians, united by purpose rather than government. The real war hadn't been against the Korthak dominion. It had been against humanity's own forgotten legacy. Now that the battle was won, they could begin rebuilding not just their civilization, but their role as defenders of peace throughout the galaxy. Elena smiled as she felt the consciousness of millions of humans throughout space, all connected by the same awakening that had transformed her crew. Humanity was finally ready to take its place among the stars, not as conquerors or colonizers, but as the guardians they had always been meant to be. The fall of the Terran Union had indeed been just the beginning. But what began next would reshape the entire galaxy.